All right.
Back to his.
Thank you, Chuck. Well, today our speaker is, I hope I pronounced it right, Dan Blankenau? Either one. As long as we don't call you late for dinner, you're fine, right? Okay. He grew up in McCook, Nebraska, and graduated from University of Nebraska with a BS in geology, not biology. And he's got 30 years of experience in geological investigations. His bio here is a little too long. I want to give him more time, so if we read all your accolades, you wouldn't have any time to say anything. But he's been doing a lot of work with Rotary clubs, particularly in Africa, and he's going to tell us a little bit about that today. So welcome, Don.
Well, thank you. I always enjoy visiting Rotary clubs, and I've visited many in Zambia and Nebraska. This is my first one out of state. I will say I'm a little bit nervous because one of my heroes and role models got me started with my interest in geology and drilling is Dick, and I'm sure you all know Dick, and Sarah doesn't intimidate me because she's so sweet, you know. So, but yeah, I worked at the survey here back in the mid-'80s working with Dick. So, oops. It timed out maybe?
Bottom there. Yeah, I'll just go ahead.
All right. All is right with the world if I have a technical glitch.
Make sure that's first one.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
So again, I'm really pleased to be here, primarily just to extend great appreciation and thanks and thank yous to Rotary from the SAM project that I've been involved with for 15 years. I just can't go on enough about the help that Rotary's provided in Zambia, Africa, southern Zambia, where we've been working. Earlier, I noticed on the accolades at the beginning, you know, goodwill. And I will say that Rotary has tremendous goodwill in southern Zambia. When we work in different villages over the years, sometimes, usually when we start off, they don't know who the SAM project is. But once we mention Rotary and that we're working with and/or for Rotary, the doors are open, and we're incredibly welcome. The SAM project, we're a small NGO from Canada, and we have a lot of volunteers. Well, when I say a lot to us, about 9 Zambians that work with us that are from Zambia. So I first got involved with the Rotary, with Zambia and the Rotary in 2008 or 9. I'm not even sure, but my wife had me go to a Rotary fundraiser for a project that was supporting childhood nutrition in Zambia. And the event was picking grapes. And first of all, I was surprised that there was a vineyard 2 miles from my house that I didn't know existed. But the Rotary was picking the grapes, and my wife had us volunteer. And so on the other side of the vine that I'm working on, you know, you strike up a conversation, can't see each other, but we're just talking about this, that, and the other thing. And somebody walked by in my row and asked me about a water well situation. And the gentleman on the other side said, well, do you know about water? And I said, well, I know a little bit about water. And he said, well, he told me about the problems in Zambia that he was facing. He had been there about 2007, I believe, and he was a retired pediatrician, and he signed 27 death certificates in about a 2.5-week period for infants. And what struck him was that they weren't dying; they were dying of diseases that were curable. It wasn't starvation, but it was malnourishment. And so he got real involved in nutrition and wanting to develop gardens. And we got to the end of the vineyard, and it turns out it's the pediatrician that my 2 oldest children saw. And we'd lost contact with him, you know, after he retired 10 years ago. And he said, well, Dan, and I was like, Dr. Chuck. And he says, you need to come to Zambia and help me drill some water wells for these gardens we're trying to go. And I said, well, Chuck, I'll do anything that I can to help you, but I guarantee you I'm never going to Zambia. 3 months later, I'm on a plane to Zambia. So we So then that's also when I got involved with the SAM project, and we tried with these nutrition gardens that the local Rotary was funding. We had some success, but it didn't really kick off too well for a myriad of reasons, cultural and logistical. But we did start a goat herd that is thriving today, and that was the one success that we've had with Rotary in the nutrition aspect of things. And then we've also been involved in a little bit of micro-enterprise. Rotary didn't get too involved in that, but it was a spin-off to some of the nutrition gardens, and those didn't work. You know, most of these ideas take some time to get going, and some just flat out don't work. The last 10 or 12 years, though, we have been in support primarily of water, trying to acquire water in southern Zambia. So just a little quick context on Zambia. It was a British colony until 1964. It's been a very democratic and peaceful country since. Where we focus is in the southern part of Zambia, and we call it the Zimba district. And it's about the size, it's a little bit smaller than the state of Delaware, the district. And it only has 108 to 180,000 people. We don't really know for sure. And they're mostly small, well, they're all small, very small farms, primarily growing maize. And they do have cattle, but the cattle are primarily for wealth. It's a standard of wealth. The more cattle you have, the wealthier your family is. And they will occasionally use a cow for a big celebration or something like that, but it's very rare, which is troublesome. You know, when you're having nutrition problems, it'd sure be nice to solve that problem that way. But in times of dire need, a family can sell their cattle for substances. Typical household, they do all live in grass huts. They have no running water and no electricity. The issue in Zambia, the part of Zambia that we work with the lack of water, is when there's a rainy season and a dry season, and during the rainy season, the rains come down in torrents and the rivers are roaring, but by the time the end of the dry season comes, they're completely dry. The only river that has water all year round is the southern border of Zambia, which is the Zambezi River, where the Victoria Falls are. And then also the geology, the reservoirs that we drill into are very difficult. It's hard rock. It's granite, basalt, right from the surface on down. And so we're looking for fractures. We're looking for fractures in that in the subsurface, and they're very hit and miss, and very little success over the years in drilling. When we first started in the area, about 90% of the wells were dry holes. And then another issue is there have been a lot of wells drilled, and the Rotary, when I say the Rotary clubs, Rotary International, have been drilling wells for 30 plus years. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, about the fact that those wells are not well maintained. One of the biggest things that we worry about is where they get the water in the dry season. And you know, this is a typical hole that's dug in the river basin where the women, it's usually women and young girls, will get water once a day, and then they literally haul it as far as 3 miles round trip to get water. So a huge Rotary project, and I personally feel it's probably the most sustainable, if you will, so far, is when and I don't take credit for this, but when I was first in Zambia, my very first trip, we were going out and siting a well, and we drove past a hand pump, and I stopped, and asked our guide, to talk to the villagers about it, through an interpreter, and it turns out, well, that's a well dried up 7 years ago. Well, we happened to have some, equipment with us, and it turns out it was a mechanical problem. The well was not dry. Of course, the people came in, drilled the well, and left. And as soon as that pump stopped working, they just assumed that it was dry. And so that kind of inspired myself and actually some Rotarians from Beatrice. You mentioned Beatrice, and Dorothy Zimmerman and a couple others got us riled up to train people in the villages how to repair their own wells. And it was very gratifying. But I think in the 8 different villages we worked, we'd have somewhere between 8 and 12 people that really wanted to learn how to fix their own wells. And so that training was very successful. They do fix their own wells now. When I was there 2 or 3 trips ago, they put on a demonstration for me to show how well they could fix their wells and also be hygienic at the same time, because there's a lot of cow manure around all of these wellheads and things. But then another problem is that being it's such a remote area, and I actually think this was Dorothy Zimmerman, the Rotarians' idea, was let's support a parts supply house. And so Rotary funded an initial setup of repair parts, pumps and handles and valves and different things that the different villagers could, we actually call them mechanics. The mechanic groups would come and borrow what they need and pay the warehouse back. And that's been so successful that actually the local government, sort of against our will, took it over, and they manage it now. But it's really nice and gratifying that they can fix their own wells. And by the way, it's very manually intense work. I mean, the wells are a lot of times 186 feet, and they're galvanized rods and tubing, and they have to pull it out by hand because we don't have any other equipment. And then we also get involved in which is the area that I really like the most, just from a technical standpoint, if you will, is the drilling of regular wells. We don't use mud rotary, I'm not sure, like we do around here, but we use air to drill through the hard rock. It's very difficult to get reliable drilling contractors, and as a matter of fact, the Rotary has lost a lot of money, which is unusual for Rotary. They, my experience is, they don't let money slip away, but there's been some nefarious well drillers that are absconded with funds, and so it makes it very difficult to drill. We are trying to increase our, I think I mentioned that our success rate was about 90%. Right now, because of doing some more high-tech geophysical work, we think we've increased the success rate of those borings to about 75%, which is still not great, but we're getting there. When we work in this district, the supporting Rotary Club is the Livingstone, Zambia Rotary, and they are very, they get quite frankly, they get inundated with money. I mean, not necessarily money, but grant applications, people wanting to work in this area, other NGOs, and so they have a lot of criteria. But they paid us to go out and survey where the wells are and where the highest demand is. And you can, this map on the left there shows where all the known water points are, but those lighter shade red dots, I think they're red, but are where there are, they have to walk greater than 3 miles round trip for a water point in the dry season. And when we came there, the Livingston Rotary had very little information on the actual where the locations were of the wells, and the local government didn't really know. And so this has been a very useful tool, a geographics tool. And let's see, I want to keep moving here. When we do start to try to find a location to drill a water well, we visit with the local chief, or the headman actually. The chief is quite remote, but we visit with the headman, and then we also engage the women in the conversation. And we ask, we're using geophysics to try to locate wells, but also there's a lot of just indigenous knowledge. Where do you think we should drill wells? And one of the headmen years ago got angry at us when we suggested we're going to drill a water well. And he said, where? And we told him, and he was very angry. And he said, why don't you ever drill where we think there's water? And we're like, well, we don't have a good reason. So, we started taking that sort of thought process into our decision-making process. And so it's about a room about this size. We separate, there'd be 15 or 20 men and 15 or 20 women, and we have them draw maps and tell us where they would like to see a well, whether that be logistics or where they think we might have more success. And that's really fun at those meetings. this might surprise you, but the women and the men don't have the same ideas on where those wells should be necessarily. But the drilling is so much fun, but it's also, terrifying, because when we, the community is so excited that we're showing up there, and then you get a dry hole, and you just want to, I was telling Dick and Sarah, you just want to crawl in that hole, when you're done. But when you get a well, it is a tremendous satisfaction, and incidentally, yeah, this was a hole that was drilled by, was funded by Rotary. So, as I said, over the last 15 years, we've been involved in a lot of projects. We are just now finishing up a global grant. It's our second global grant that we've had, and this was actually started pre-COVID, but where we were doing a lot of work and having a lot of success in this small village. Another village about 20 miles further out in the bush would hear about it, and they would see it on occasion when they came to the big town of Zambia, and they approached the SAM project, could you help us like you helped them? And we were kind of nervous about that because of the logistics, but we did then go visit with a Rotary, and they were very interested in supporting a global grant, and the Livingstone Rotary, was very happy to be the host agency for that. And this was, we were just we already knew that there had been, I think, 12 dry holes drilled in the area, so we knew that we probably weren't going to have a lot of success drilling for water. So, but we were charged with trying to, come up with some other ideas. This little community is only 1,000 people in the community, and their situation is just so dire at the end of the dry season. And I've been asked many times, why do those people live there if it's so terrible? Why, what's their problem? Why don't they move somewhere where they don't have that problem? Well, they're not there because they want to be. They're there because they were displaced in the 1950s when they built the Karuba Dam along the Zambezi River. So when 1,000, at the time is actually a larger group, I don't recall exactly, but it's a larger group of people had to move somewhere. And well, you just can't go anywhere. So they went to where nobody else already, was. And so that's where their community is, and that's why it's there. When we were talking to Rotary International a little bit, one of the things that they were saying is we're not going to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the people we were talking to said we're not going to fund a water project, a water intervention project like this unless you have a sanitation component. We don't want to be causing harm. We don't want to be drilling wells and or dams, because we have built a few dams and different things where, we could just make the problem worse. And in this particular area, doing our survey, we found that some of these people were walking, nearly 3 miles one way towards the dry season, end of the dry season to get water, and there were no latrines. Everything was surface defecation. And so we, of course, visited with the community and tried to get their involvement on what they could provide as far as support, for the project. And of course, manual labor is always present. I mean, these people are incredibly hardworking people, but they'd have no money to put into the project. So we had to get a little creative how we got them involved, but as far as a fiscal standpoint. So we looked at a lot of different options, and we didn't really come up with anything new, but we did come up with some ideas. And we sent our Zambian director, he's an engineer from Zambia, and we sent him to Kenya to learn how to build sand dams. And these sand dams are, I'd never heard of them, but basically in these ephemeral streams, during the rainy season, water just rushes through these creeks and rivers. And you build this weir, this dam across that, and allow the water to flow over. But as that water flows over, hopefully the more coarse material settles out and doesn't make it over the top of the dam. But the clay and the silt do. And so over on average, about a 3-year period, that back of that dam fills up with sand, not water, but sand that then retains water through the dry season. And as part of this Masanzia Global Grant, we did construct 2 of them. The jury's still out. One of them we had a little bit of erosion problems beneath the weir. But the other one seems to be, and we'll try to rectify that. But this summer is supposed to be the first summer that we actually recharge a sand dam, and we'll see how that works. And if it does work in our district, then we will build more. So, and we did, and again, we did build 2 of them, and there's a lot of labor involved. And then quickly, I'll just go through a couple of other things that we did in the Masanzia grant. Was you saw the woman in the hole bucketing out water. What we decided to do was we brought in a gentleman from Western Zambia that built coffers, or these it's like a coffer dam sort of construction, where the bottom, the villagers would pour these in the field, bring the cement out there and concrete, and they would build these rings and let them harden and then lower them into the hole with a very, I had to turn and look the other way when they were lowering those into the hole. But we did at least create, a more sanitary well surface completion. And another thing we did is we are working on training them how to drill some of their own wells in areas where we know there's water. But I guess I'm going to have to, we did have a lot of success, but we also had some failures, and we do intend to go back this summer, and this grant was officially finalized. There's supposed to be 3-year grants, but this one took 5, and COVID really threw us for a loop. But anyway, I am running out of time. I could go on and on, but I just want to, again, extend sincere thanks from not only the SAM project, actually, but I know specific headmen and women in these villages that so much appreciate what Rotary's done in southern Zambia in the last 15 years. So thank you.
Questions?
How many times have you been to Zambia?
I think I've been there 10 or 11 times in 15 years. I'm not positive, actually. Sarah asked me that too, and I was like, I don't know. I got to check, I guess. But yeah, I'm hoping to go. I'm hoping to go again this summer, while we drill some wells. Yes, sir.
Your picture there, I assume that's PVC piping? Does that hold up well?
Well, actually, that's a new pump that is PVC. Everything else has been galvanized up until recently. But yeah, it is PVC, and we don't know how well they hold up just yet. But we do know that the galvanized would rust readily and have all kinds of problems. So we've only installed about 15 or 20 of those, and they've only been there a couple of years. But yeah, we're hoping that they're going to be hardier than the other pumps. So, yes, sir.
So you said your grant is over, but you're still working, right? The organization's still functioning?
Yes, yes.
I assume you need money. What was that, they say $300 for a well?
Oh, the $300, I'm sorry, yeah, I went through that really quickly, and that is a, the Rotary is very particular about, sticking to the plan until the plan fails. And we were starting to run out of logistical problems, and our plan, the last part of the Masanzia Global Grant was not, we were not finishing up the water access, or the number of water points that they wanted, but we just weren't going to waste money and drill where we really felt it was wasteful. So we went to an area relatively nearby where we already know that there's water there. It is slightly different. It's more of it's a softer rock, and we trained 4 different groups of young men to drill their own wells. And I have to show you a video of that, Dick. But anyway, but it only costs $300 to drill those wells. And they're about 60 feet. But the jury's out on that too. We've installed 29 of them, but I'm worried about the hardiness, the sustainability of those wells. But yeah, they only cost $300 because everybody does all their work manually, and most of the materials are garnered nearby. We use termite mounds instead of bentonite, for example, as a drilling fluid. So.
I can only imagine what a life changer that must be.
Oh. Yeah, same here. I mean, it is just, it's so nice when, yeah, all of a sudden you're not walking, so far for water. And with these $300 wells, again, they're drilled in areas where the grass huts are, relatively close, but we've got a pretty good chance there's going to be water there. And they have basically a water point right in their front yard.
Cooperation and support from the Zambian government?
When we first started, there was essentially no Zambian government, as far as it pertained to the water. But now it's been a great relationship the last 10 years. And we work with two governments, basically. We work with the federal government. We have to get their approval and their clearance and their cooperation. But more importantly, we have to get the tribal government involved and get their cooperation and participation. And it's a kind of a complicated situation, but usually the federal government will defer to the chiefdom. The chief, he pretty much gets whatever he wants. Yeah. So.
The pump that woman is using, is that a lift pump or a plunge pump? And the question really comes is, do you have to often go below 15 feet to get to water in such wells?
Yeah, okay, thank you for that. Yeah, no, that is a lift pump, just like it's the same thing as your windmill pump, essentially. But instead of a handle outside going up and down, it works like that. And we're
The pump only works above 15 feet.
Right.
The question is, do you have to go below 15 feet often to get water?
Yes, we do. Yeah, the hand pumps that we use are mechanical pumps, essentially just like a windmill pump. And we limit ourselves to about 180 feet maximum depth on those mechanical pumps. But a suction or pump like that, yeah, we don't have any of those in our area, unless it's somebody's using that to get water out of an irrigation ditch of some sort. But, and then one comment, I think I breezed right past that slide, was the sanitation component. That was the thing I was most nervous about as far as getting sign-off from Rotary. I just couldn't imagine how we were going to get that accomplished. But we worked with some government health officials that came out and spent weeks with the village, teaching them, first of all, the importance of latrines, and then also on the construction and design of them. And I think my slide said we went from 0 to 90% of the households. I think now there's only 2 households. When I was there last summer, there's only 2 households that didn't have latrines. So that was really, Rotary was kind of happy about that. So.
Is the surface water in the rivers, when it is active, is it safe to drink typically? Thinking of the sand.
Yes, and actually very little of the water is safe to drink without boiling, unless, and not because of human defecation, but, animals, cattle are all over the place. So yeah, no, there is really not much clean water, and you have to boil the water. Although the elders don't boil the water, and they don't like our clean water, by the way. You get them a nice clean water well, and the elders just don't like the taste of it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. We make you work a little bit for your dinner. We do a 50-50 drawing,
I did.
and they prefer you do that than I do.
I understand.
Yeah.
I've heard about you. Okay. Can't see that without my iPhone.
Jeanette Lorenz. Nope.
What does she get?
We have the little blue buckets that have our 50-50 stuff.
Oh,
so.
wow, cool.
But she has to be present to win.
Oh,
She's
so I
not
gotta
here
pick
tonight.
them up.
Nope.
Oh, that's it.
Nope, that's it.
It's like the lottery. It just keeps building.
Nope, yep, it just,
Okay.
we have no tolerance for those who aren't here. None whatsoever. All right, well, thank you, Don. That was quite interesting. This is part of where your Rotary dollars that's going to the International Rotary Club, this is where it goes. It's to things like this. So you're a part of this too. You're not just strangers to it. There's some of your money is over there making clean water for people. So thank you for that. Thank you to our visitors for coming today. Amy, Margaret, Sarah, Mike, Joe, big group today. So good to have all of you with us.